In the 1920s, young women across the United States flocked to factories, eager to join the workforce. The industrial boom of the era promised new opportunities and financial independence, drawing women from all walks of life into the bustling world of manufacturing. Among them were the Radium Girls, hundreds of women employed by companies like the United States Radium Corporation. These companies were at the forefront of a new and exciting industry, producing luminous watch dials that glowed in the dark, a feature highly sought after during the time. These women, some as young as teenagers, meticulously painted watch dials with luminous radium paint, a seemingly glamorous job at the time. The work required a steady hand and a keen eye, as the tiny numbers and hands on the watch faces needed to be precisely painted to ensure they would glow brightly. Little did they know their work came with a hidden and deadly price. The very substance that made their work so desirable was also a silent killer, lurking in the paint they handled every day. The women worked in close quarters, their fingers nimbly applying the glowing paint to tiny watch faces. The factory floors were often crowded and poorly ventilated, conditions that only exacerbated the dangers they faced. The work was tedious, but the pay was good, and the radiant glow of the radium dust seemed magical. It was a time when radium was hailed as a wonder element, believed to have health benefits and used in a variety of consumer products. Many of the girls even painted their nails and teeth with the luminous substance, captivated by its ethereal beauty. They would often leave the factory with a faint glow, a badge of honor that set them apart from others. Unbeknownst to them, this fascination with radium would have devastating consequences. The very glow they admired was a sign of the radioactive decay that was slowly wreaking havoc on their bodies. The radium, touted as a medical marvel at the time, was slowly poisoning the women with every brushstroke. Symptoms of radium poisoning were insidious, starting with fatigue and aches and progressing to severe pain, disfigurement, and ultimately, death. They were ingesting radium with each lick of their paintbrush, a common practice used to achieve a fine point. This method, known as lip pointing, was encouraged by the supervisors to ensure precision, but it meant that the women were directly ingesting the toxic substance. The companies, aware of the potential dangers of radium, took precautions to protect their male employees who handled the raw material. These men were given protective gear and worked in safer conditions, highlighting a stark gender disparity in workplace safety. However, the women deemed less important were kept in the dark about the risks they faced. They were not provided with the same safety measures, nor were they informed about the potential hazards of their work. The story of the Radium Girls is a tragic tale of corporate greed, scientific hubris, and the extraordinary courage of ordinary women who dared to fight back against injustice. Despite their suffering, these women banded together, seeking justice and accountability from the companies that had betrayed their trust. Their struggle brought to light the dangers of workplace hazards and ultimately led to groundbreaking changes in labor laws and worker safety standards that continue to protect us today. The legacy of the Radium Girls is a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for what is right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The discovery of radium by Marie and Pierre Curie in 1898 was a monumental moment in the history of science. Their groundbreaking work not only earned them a Nobel Prize, but also opened the door to a new era of scientific exploration and commercial applications. This discovery sparked a wave of excitement and innovation across the globe. Scientists and entrepreneurs alike were eager to explore the potential uses of this newly discovered element. Hailed as a miracle element, radium's glow-in-the-dark properties and perceived health benefits made it a popular addition to everything from toothpaste to cosmetics. Advertisements boasted of its ability to rejuvenate the skin and improve overall health, making it a sought-after ingredient in many household products. One of the most commercially successful applications of radium was its use in luminous paint for watches, clocks, and military instruments. The ability to see the time in the dark was a revolutionary convenience, especially for soldiers in the trenches of World War I. The demand for radium-painted watches soared during World War I, creating thousands of jobs, primarily for young women. These women, often referred to as Radium Girls, were employed to paint the tiny numbers and hands on watch dials with the glowing paint. The work seemed glamorous and safe, especially compared to other factory jobs of the time. The factories were clean and well lit, and the women enjoyed a sense of pride in their work. The women were paid piecework, earning more for each dial they painted, which encouraged them to work quickly and efficiently. This system allowed them to earn a decent wage, which was a significant draw for many young women seeking financial independence. They were often encouraged by their supervisors to point their brushes with their lips, a practice known as lip pointing, to maintain a fine tip. This technique, while effective for precision, was incredibly dangerous as it led to the ingestion of radium. The companies fostered a culture of fun and camaraderie among the women. They worked side by side, sharing stories and laughter, creating a strong sense of community within the factory walls. They held dances and social events, further masking the insidious danger lurking in the paint. These events were a welcome distraction from the monotony of factory work and helped to build lasting friendships. The women, many from working-class families, were proud of their jobs and the independence it afforded them. For many, this was their first taste of financial freedom and the ability to contribute significantly to their household incomes. They were the breadwinners, contributing to their families' incomes and enjoying a newfound sense of freedom. This financial independence was empowering and allowed them to make choices they had never been able to before. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic work environment lay a sinister truth. The very element that brought them so much pride and financial stability was also a silent killer. The radium, unbeknownst to the women, was silently and steadily wreaking havoc on their bodies. The effects of radium poisoning were slow and insidious, often taking years to manifest. With each lick of their paintbrush, they were ingesting a substance that would forever alter their lives. The radium accumulated in their bones, causing severe health issues such as anemia, bone fractures, and necrosis of the jaw, a condition later known as radium jaw. The true cost of their work would only become apparent years later, as the devastating effects of radium exposure took their toll. As months turned into years, the initial excitement of working with the luminous paint began to give way to a string of unexplained illnesses among the Radium Girls. These young women, who had once been thrilled to have such a glamorous job, started to notice subtle changes in their health. What began as minor discomfort soon escalated into severe health crises. What started with fatigue and aches progressed to more alarming symptoms, including anemia, bone fractures, and debilitating pain. The women found themselves unable to perform even the simplest tasks without experiencing excruciating discomfort. Their once vibrant energy was sapped, leaving them shadows of their former selves. Many of the women developed a condition known as radium jaw, a horrific ailment characterized by decaying jaw bones and excruciating pain. This condition not only caused immense physical suffering, but also led to severe disfigurement, making it difficult for the women to eat, speak, or even smile. The social stigma and isolation that came with such visible deformities added to their emotional and psychological torment. The radium, they would later learn, was a radioactive element that emitted alpha particles. These particles were initially thought to be harmless, even beneficial, as radium was marketed as a wonder element with supposed health benefits. It was used in a variety of consumer products, from luminous watches to health tonics, without any understanding of its true dangers. These particles, when ingested or inhaled, bombarded their bodies with radiation, damaging tissue and DNA. The cumulative effect of this exposure was devastating, leading to a cascade of health problems that the medical community was ill-equipped to understand or treat at the time. The radium had a particular affinity for bone tissue, where it accumulated and continued to emit radiation long after exposure. This meant that even after the women stopped working with the paint, the radium remained in their bodies, continuing to cause damage. The bones, being the primary storage site, suffered the most, leading to fractures, necrosis, and other severe conditions. The women, unaware of the cause of their suffering, sought answers from doctors. They visited numerous physicians, hoping for a diagnosis that could explain their myriad symptoms. However, the medical community was largely ignorant of the effects of radium, and the women were often met with confusion and skepticism. However, their symptoms were often misdiagnosed as rheumatism, anemia, or even syphilis. These misdiagnoses not only delayed proper treatment, but also subjected the women to unnecessary and often harmful treatments. The stigma associated with some of these conditions further compounded their suffering, as they were unfairly judged and ostracized by society. The companies, eager to protect their profits, denied any link between the women's illnesses and their work with radium. They conducted their own biased investigations and produced reports that downplayed the risks. The corporate leaders were more concerned with maintaining their lucrative business than with the health and safety of their workers. They dismissed their claims as outlandish and accused them of seeking attention or financial gain. This gaslighting tactic was designed to discredit the women and prevent them from gaining public sympathy or legal support. The companies went to great lengths to protect their reputations, even as more and more women fell ill. Despite the company's attempts to silence them, the women began to suspect that their work with radium was the root of their problems. They started to share their experiences and symptoms with each other, realizing that the common factor in their suffering was their exposure to the luminous paint. This collective awareness marked the beginning of their fight for justice. They had witnessed firsthand the devastating effects of the paint on their colleagues. The sight of their friends and co-workers deteriorating before their eyes was a powerful motivator. They knew that they had to take action, not just for themselves, but for all the women who would come after them. They saw their friends and co-workers, once full of life and laughter, waste away, their bodies ravaged by a mysterious and painful illness. The transformation was heartbreaking and served as a grim reminder of the potential consequences of their own exposure. The sense of urgency grew as more women succumbed to the illness. The women's suspicions were confirmed when they began to learn about the deaths of several former dial painters, all succumbing to similar gruesome ailments. These deaths were not isolated incidents, but part of a larger pattern that pointed directly to radium exposure. The mounting evidence made it increasingly difficult for the companies to deny the truth. The truth was becoming undeniable. The very substance that had once illuminated their lives was now slowly killing them. This realization was both devastating and empowering. It fueled their determination to seek justice and ensure that no other women would have to suffer the same fate. Their fight would eventually lead to significant changes in workplace safety regulations and a greater awareness of the dangers of radiation.